you think of LDL like this, instead of thinking it as good or bad, or HDL good or bad, or VLDL or LDL or triglycerides, if you just think of this like this, oxidized LDL, everything starts to make sense. So let's imagine that we have a very evil person running around in our city. This person does not want to be implicated in any murder. So what he does is that blackmails an innocent person. The evil person will tell this person right here, you either kill someone else, I don't care who, or I kill one of your loved ones, right? This person now is going to kill someone else, an innocent person, completely unrelated to the evil person. When that happens, who is the evil person? Is it the person that did the killing, or the person that made the killing actually happen? I would say that this person would be the evilest of them all. And if you want to stop, in this case, the murders of people, then you have to stop the evil person, not the neutral person or the innocent. So why am I telling you all this? I believe cholesterol is right now the innocent person. Cholesterol is causing damages, however, it's not cholesterol's fault. And we're going to start from the beginning. So cholesterol is an essential nutrient. It's needed for literally every single cell in the body. And a very important part of it is, of course, the brain. We were told, our parents, our grandparents were told that cholesterol is very bad in high numbers. And yet, for the past 15 years or so, the conversation shifted for HDL and LDL, so good and bad cholesterol, respectively. And this brings me to the conversation between good HDL and bad LDL. So now we know that even having high cholesterol does not matter as long as your LDL is lower. LDL is not cholesterol. LDL, as the name indicates, is a lipoprotein, is a low-density lipoprotein. So LDL and HDL are not cholesterol. Okay? They are not the same thing. One belongs to the other, but it's just one part of it. So saying that LDL is bad cholesterol is ridiculous. LDL is simply a bigger or lower density lipoprotein. These lipoproteins are simply composed, or I should say that cholesterol is simply composed by a chemical formula which is C2746HO, and there is no other molecule for cholesterol. That's it. There's no good, there's no bad. There's only one, C2746HO. So where does this bad chemical formula for the bad cholesterol comes from? It makes no sense, right? So for those who don't know, a lipoprotein like the name indicates, lipo meaning the fat, and protein meaning protein. That's pretty obvious. Think of them as little taxis that transport, this is my taxi, that transports fat throughout your bloodstream into your cells. Blood and fat don't mix up, kind of like oil and water, for example. So our body needs these lipoproteins to carry our fat, and most importantly, fat-soluble vitamins such as A, D, K, and E vitamins are only vitamins that are dissolved and carried with a little bit of fat. So you need to eat fat in order to carry these proteins, and you need lipoproteins in order to carry you need a little bit of fat to carry the vitamins, and you need the lipoproteins in order to carry the vitamins and the fat that is needed for our brain to be, our body, not just the brain, to be developed. So these are little taxis, the lipoproteins, And the way they process in the body is very simple. The liver, okay, that literally packs. Liver is an amazing organ, and we'll get there in a second. But the function of the liver, one of them, 500, how many functions it has? One of its functions is exactly to create these lipoproteins full of good fats and vitamins. Okay, so the liver, I should do like this. So the liver puts all of these into the LDL, these lipoproteins. Basically, these lipoproteins now go through the bloodstream into the cells. This is the mitochondria, as you know, powerhouse of the cell, power station, according to some doctors. Midlife crisis shout out. If you guys don't know, check it out. And once these fats and vitamins are used up, the cell gives back the lipoproteins in form of HDL. Okay, high density lipoproteins. The names can be a bit tricky, but as I explained, high density lipoproteins are smaller than low density lipoproteins. It's just about density. The more dense you are, the smaller you are. There's a little caveat there, but don't worry about it right now. Okay, so right now these lipoproteins are empty, are no longer with fats and vitamins inside of them, and they will be transferred into the liver in order to return this cycle. So please tell me how LDL is bad. How can it be considered bad? It makes no sense. And anyone still saying bad cholesterol LDL and good cholesterol HDL it's complete nonsense. It makes no sense for anyone that actually studied biology. Now, we call it bad because of its possible effects in the body, and we will get to it soon enough. There is a problem, however. A lot of people calling LDL bad forget about this amazing study, which is a meta-analysis of 19 cohort studies with over 68,000 people. And this study showed, I'll put it in the screen, that higher LDL equates to longer lifespan. So, the more LDL, the more bad cholesterol, the more low density lipoproteins you have, the higher you live, the longer you live, I should say. That makes no sense. Why are we calling something that is good for us bad? Can someone explain it to me? I don't really understand. And this comes, of course, thanks to the epidemiology process. And the study that I just showed you suffers exactly from the same issues as epidemiology, which is usually questionnaire studies or approximations that show associations, but they can never show causational problems. In this study is that the higher it's for 60 years or more people, and a lot of people will say, oh, but heart attacks can come before that, so what about what happens before that? And my answer to that is simple. Can you think of something, stress, pollution, heavy work, smoking, alcohol, that younger people do more than older people? That's food for thought, I would say. But let's continue with our explanation. Why is LDL considered, or cholesterol considered, as bad? It's very simple. As you may know, imagine this is our blood vessels, right? Scientists have found something called plaques, something that grows. So if this is our blood, something that grows in our arteries, in our veins, that limits the blood flow of, the blood flow. That limits the blood flow, right? And we thought that this constriction is what causes heart attacks and heart problems. Funnily enough, it's not the constriction that causes the problems, but when these plaques break, that problems start to arrive. And what happens is that blood clots start to form. So a lot of these little blood cells start to form, and they get hard, and then it stops the blood flow. We're not sure why this happens, but we believe that this is to stop any internal bleeding when the veins erupt. The problem is, when this happens too fast, our body has no response to it, and heart attacks happen. Basically, the blood flow to our brain or the blood flow to our heart gets interrupted. Without blood, you die. And in these plaques, we found cholesterol. So, scientists assumed, and makes sense, if you lower cholesterol, you lower plaques. If you lower plaques, no problem. But is this really a good method? Something else that appears in these blood clots, for example, fibrin. This fibrin is responsible for the clotting of our blood. So my question is, instead of lowering cholesterol, why not lower fibrin? Well, that's obvious, because fibrin is essential for wound healing. That's what makes our wounds stop bleeding, by creating those inflammation, those clots, to stop the flow of the blood. So if lowering fibrin is bad for you, lowering cholesterol is good, you're basically stopping a natural process from our body. Why would that be good? The thing is that if we would lower the fibrin, its effects would be immediate. We would see straight away people dying left and right because they would bleed non-stop. Lowering cholesterol does not seem to affect us as quickly. It takes years for problems to arrive, especially if cholesterol, or these lipoproteins, I should say, are responsible to be carrying vitamins and nutrients into the blood cells. If this happens for many, many years, of course we're going to die sooner. Doesn't that make any sense? I think it does. So, what happened? Why do we see that in some studies lowering LDL actually improves the less likely of cardiovascular problems? So, in a lot of studies that say that LDL is bad, by lowering LDL, we see less cardiovascular problems, right? In some studies. The problem is, if you would continue the same studies for longer, when you lower LDL, the risk of death, let's put skull, actually increases. And this doesn't make any sense, right? If we are lowering the risk of cardiovascular disease, how are we increasing our risk of death? Well, it's simple. We simply die of other causes. And this is shown in randomized controlled trials. The best of the best trials that we have in cardiovascular disease is saying to us that lowering LDL is not good for you. What do I mean by that? It's very simple. I believe, and now scientists believe, that by lowering LDL, we stop the creation of these plaques, right? However, stopping the creation of these plaques is fine. We stop cardiovascular disease, but because we are stopping such an important process of our body, other problems arrive that accelerate our death. So, lowering cholesterol might be the same as lowering fibrin, basically saying that yes, we stop cardiovascular disease, but we cause more death. And I'm going to show you 4 studies where this has been demonstrated, that lowering cardiovascular disease, lowering LDL cholesterol by substituting animal fats, saturated fats with vegetable oils actually increase the risk of death, and in some cases even of cardiovascular disease. So what is happening? Why is LDL, something that is so important for us, causing us this problem? We still want to avoid it, right? We can't just let people do whatever they want. No, we need a solution. And I think I have the solution for you guys today. Now, I just told you for the past 20 minutes or so that LDL is not bad for you. That's not 100% true. There is a problem, okay? Oxidized LDL. Now, oxidized LDL is shown to cause plaques. The LDL that we find in these plaques is caused, or at least we find some oxidized LDL in it, not regular LDL, oxidized. And by oxidized, I really mean damaged. So something damaged LDL, and this will lead to plaques. Whether it is causal or not, we're still not sure. I think it is, because basically it's a bit complicated, the chemistry around it. I'll leave it for another day. But for now, let's assume that it's not LDL, it's oxidized LDL that causes cardiovascular problems. Okay. What if I told you that oxidized LDL is, like in our example, the victim? It's not the killer, but the victim. We all know that our cells can oxidize, basically everything can oxidize, metal can oxidize. And it happens when usually it's interfered with something else, for metal to oxidize, water, humidity has to come into contact with it, right? So we need to find what is causing this oxidized LDL. And the oxidation of the LDL, that's hard to say, is mainly done by contacts with other oxidized products. What causes oxidation? Very simple and scientifically proven: pollution. And the corollary of pollution is, of course, smoking. This is why smoking is responsible for cardiovascular disease. If you remember President Eisenhower, the problem that started the whole thing was a big smoker. He smoked almost 3 packs a day. And we now know that smoking causes cardiovascular disease, because smoking causes oxidation in our cells, oxidation in our blood vessels, and these cause plaques, ruptures, and a whole list of problems. Smoking is not just for the lungs, it's also bad for the heart. What else causes oxidation? Well, I would argue oxidized food. If LDL comes into contact with other oxidized molecules from food, for example, well, it becomes oxidized itself. Especially, remember that LDL means that it absorbs the lipids. If those fats are oxidized, LDL becomes oxidized. Simple enough, right? So which foods do we eat are the most oxidized of them all? If you know, feel free to put it in the comments before I say it. I would argue that the most oxidized foods that we eat right now are vegetable oils. This is not up for debate. This is 100% and absolutely true. When you buy a seed oil, a vegetable oil from the supermarket, whether it is even olive oil but at a lower rate, polyunsaturated fats, unsaturated fats oxidize much faster than saturated fats. Which means that oxidized vegetable oils, OVO, will cause oxidized LDL. Oxidized LDL will cause plaques. And if you think of LDL like this, instead of thinking it as good or bad, or HDL good or bad, or VLDL or LDL or triglycerides, if you just think of this like this, oxidized LDL, everything starts to make sense. What is the diet that causes the most cardiovascular disease? Standard American diet, right? What is the standard American diet high in? Well, that's simple. Saturated fats, which raise LDL, and vegetable oils, because of all the frying, which raise oxidation, that raises oxidized LDL, that raises plaques. So, the vegan diet cuts out the saturated fats and just leaves you with vegetable oils, oxidized vegetable oils. These will cause, of course, oxidized LDL in much lower quantities because they are not raising LDL as much. So, carnivore diets, keto diets, good healthy diets that don't include vegetable oils, they raise LDL, but because the LDL is not getting oxidized, they do not raise plaques. Okay? What does this mean? It's very simple. If you want to avoid cardiovascular disease problems, you either avoid raising your LDL or you either avoid vegetable oils. However, LDL is not the culprit, is not the problem. Like in our example, it's the oxidized vegetable oils that are causing the LDL to rise, that are causing the oxidized LDL to rise, that are causing the killing. Mic drop. I just proved to you, I think without a shadow of a doubt, why LDL is neither good or bad, okay? Oxidized LDL can cause problems. However, LDL is essential for living. Again, study shows that people with high LDL live longer than people with lower LDL. But for me, it was such a revelation to understand that LDL is not bad, HDL is not good. They're just lipoproteins that our body produces when it needs to. Yes, saturated fats raise LDL, but that's not a bad thing because LDL is not a bad thing. Oxidative LDL is a bad thing, and that is caused when oxidative stress enters our body. And oxidative stress enters our body through multiple processes, such as smoking, such as pollution, but most important, vegetable oils. And I do think that vegetable oils are creating the most problems amongst all the other possible combinations of ingredients for these plaques, simply because if you see the saturated fats, or at least the red meat consumption has been staying steady or even going down in some cases. The smoking has been going down a lot. However, the cardiovascular diseases problem keep going up. And what's going up with it? Vegetable oil consumption. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions, leave them down below. I would love to keep talking about this.